Action!
For thousands of years, we have been at war. But before, we were enemies. We were like brothers. You ready?
Always ready. Let's punch in.
Hey Josh, hey Lorenzo, it's Ben O'Shea from the West Australian in Perth, Australia. How are you?
Good,
Great.
how are you?
How are you?
Yeah, doing great. Very excited to talk to you guys. Josh, I want to start with you. Now, you've worked with toys before, Mr. Potato Head, and now I want to know, who's the biggest diva? Is it Buzz Lightyear or Megatron?
The biggest diva. It's actually Bumblebee.
Yeah, I would expect nothing less. Lorenzo, across these previous 8 Transformer movies, you've established this incredible universe, generated billions of dollars at the box office. Can you explain to me now this pivot to animation after all of that?
You know, this is a story that I think right around the time when we were debating the second movie, we began to look at different stories in the lore. And this is one of the stories that came up, and it stuck with us all the time. We kept going back to this story each time we were developing a movie, and we realized, frankly, you couldn't deliver this kind of movie live action. You needed animation to give it the singularity of the planet and all the different things that occur. And so finally its day has come, and what was great about it is it expands our palette. It expands the experience for the audience, first and foremost, is the most important thing we're trying to do with each movie. And so this opens a whole nother level of storytelling and direction for the Transformers fans to participate in.
Especially some of the older fans like me who remember the original Transformers animated film. Josh, what's your background with Transformers in your life?
Yeah, so I grew up, Saturday morning cartoons, eating cereal next to my brother, and Transformers was on the menu, and so was G.I. Joe and He-Man, all those awesome, crazy cartoons from the 80s. And so that's what got me into animation from the beginning, from as early as I can remember. And I had the toys as well. So, and then I remember going to see the '86 film and being distraught by, along with everybody else in my generation. But so it's kind of, I've come full circle in a weird way to finally work on a Transformers film.
And after that first 1986 movie, did you feel that the bar was set so low that you couldn't do anything else other than knock it out of the park this time?
Well, there's some great things in that movie, like in terms of scale, in terms of the voice cast alone. I mean, having Orson Welles as Unicron, I think, is one of the most genius things ever. And I was like, oh, I wish we could work those recordings into this movie somehow. Yeah. Not possible, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely influenced a generation.
Yeah, and let's talk about the voice cast of Transformers 1, because it's not too shabby either. Lorenzo, I guess the main thing for fans is Chris Hemsworth as sort of the young Optimus Prime, Orion Pax. Peter Cullen is the voice of Optimus Prime. It's the only one that I've ever known. Tell me about the choice of Chris Hemsworth in this critical role.
Well, starting with Peter, he is that voice, and he is and will be the voice of Optimus Prime in the live action. So it's not that we don't value him tremendously. We do. It actually was put a lot of pressure on us because Peter has a voice of an older man. And so we needed a youthful, somewhat naive, somewhat bubbly kind of voice. But at the same time, we needed that voice by the end of the movie to have the gravitas or hint at the gravitas of where Peter brought that character. And so we zeroed in on Chris because we felt he had that lightness and that fun that could communicate youth. And he also has a bit of a tenor, baritone kind of voice. So, we approached him, and thankfully he's a Transformers fan, and completely felt that obligation to bring a new version of Orion Pax, a first version of Orion Pax, really, but also at the same time acknowledge who Optimus is going to become.
So, how long do you think we'll be here? I'm not talking to you.
You know what? We are so screwed.
Thought you weren't talking to me. You two, come with me.
Josh, you mentioned Bumblebee, voiced by Keegan-Michael Key in the film, who brings some comic relief. Like, he tries to convince everybody that his nickname should be Badassatron.
Which is actually pronounced
Badassatron.
Yeah.
How important was that comedy aspect to the film?
Well, you know, Transformers, ever since the beginning, there's always been an element of comedy in all of it, even in the live action films as well. It's you can't. I mean, if you really think about it, it's such a wild idea of transforming robots coming to Earth that it just naturally is comedic. And so, knowing that we were going to have a Bumblebee, you know, everybody knows Bumblebee from the live action films is not having a voice, which is a genius idea. And so we're like, let's play the opposite of that. Let's play a Bumblebee who can't stop talking, and that's Keegan-Michael Key to the down to, you know, perfection. He can read the phone book, and it's hilarious.
Whoa! I got a battle mask! It appeared with this guy! Knife hands? I have knife hands!
I can see that.
And so he fully embraced his character and just brought such a joy and comic relief, but also a real humanness to the emotion.
You also
of that.
need that comedy to balance the stakes. Otherwise, it gets a little grim and a little, you know, when you were talking about the original animated movie, the relentlessly grim part of it was something that I didn't really relate to. And at the same time, you want meaningful emotional stakes. So it gives you a bit of relief to go back and forth.
And I think Scarlett Johansson's character, Elita, is really interesting in the film as well. Someone who has kind of this, you know, sort of duty-bound character who has to kind of face whether or not she needs to, you know, sort of betray her duty to do the right thing. I think it's fascinating. Tell me, Lorenzo, about like getting her over the line in this movie.
Well, it was really, I mean, Josh had worked with her before, and so that was part of our inspiration. But we also felt really strongly that, honestly, we hadn't created a great female robot character. And so, in a way, it was shooting for such a big star, was also shooting for why we wanted Elita to make a big splash, you know. And she brought so much character to that story that it began to evolve when you would hear her voice. The spunkiness, the sort of attitude of it shifted as we were making the film, and we played even more. So, like, there's a moment in the film which I love when he says, "I'm smarter than you." Like, I think we might not have gotten there without Scarlett. Not that it was her idea, but it was the inspiration of her attitude. It got us to a funnier place with that character.
Yeah, like I think that was very effective. And Josh, you know, like I know Steve Buscemi has been a Transformer before. He was Day Trader in The Last Night, but surely he was born to play Starscream.
I 100% agree, and I know that I remember the moment that Lorenzo said, "What about Buscemi as Starscream?" And I went, "Yes, that is exactly it." And that is exactly it. And he was our first choice from the very beginning, and so thankful that he agreed to do it, and he nailed it. It's just for fans that are fans of Buscemi and fans of Starscream. You can hear it in the audience when people hear him come on, and they're just so excited.
It's one of my favorite parts about the film. I would see a spin-off standalone Starscream movie with Steve. That would just be incredible. All right, guys, I'm going to let you go. But before I do, like, what do you hope audiences, all the many millions of Transformer fans, take away from this movie, which is a little bit different from what we've seen before, but at the same time really is a throwback to the things that made Transformers great in the first place?
Yeah, so, you know, from the beginning, this was always, we want to tell a story that's a very human story told with robots, and starting at the beginning, so that anybody, fans will enjoy it. People who have never heard of the word Transformer can walk in off the street and enjoy this movie. So that was the goal from day one, and already we've been seeing the responses. We're very happy with it.
And I think obviously when you make a film, your objective is to entertain. And you want audience to come out. But I think also, not to sound too heavy or pretentious about it, because I don't mean it that way, but in a way, this makes you think about people in a different way. You know, you've had this memory of who Megatron is. Now you see Megatron in a totally different light. And I hope in a nice way that makes people sort of pause about judgment in a world that's so full of judgment.
Yeah, and is the hope that we'll see more of these animated features if this one does well?
Absolutely.
That's my hope.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Oh, well, lock it in because it's going to make a lot of money. I think we all know that. Josh, Lorenzo, thank you so much for your time and congratulations on the movie.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And cut.